So, this topic is pretty long overdue. We've all been dealing with it for a while now. It's the thing leading to so much player fatigue. Nintendo wanted to get experimental and try out the seasonal approach that games like Fortnite do, which in itself, the seasonal model isn't a bad approach. Fortnite makes the seasonal model work by having lots of new content drop at the start of the season, but consistently dropping more content and hosting in-game events throughout the season, as well as the occasional season finale event. So how does Splatoon 3 support its seasonal model? But before we get into that, I'm trying to reach 30,000 subscribers by March 15th, and it would mean the world to me if you help me get to that goal. So if you want to be a real homie, then drop a sub. Alright, video time. At launch, 2 new maps, new weapons, new gear, and new cosmetics. Then after that, for the whole rest of the season, the 3 months they need to cover with content, we get 2 Splatfests and a big run. So are we starting to see the issue here? It's not like Splatoon 3 didn't launch with enough content, because it definitely did, but damn, it's good Nintendo isn't making us pay for these seasons, because they're just throwing the bag with them so far. Look, I get that it's free post-launch content, but Nintendo committed to supporting this game, and they're not doing enough to keep the community invested in the later months of the season that we're going through right now. We've got the announcement of another Splatfest, with a choice of teams that surely won't lead to Fry's team getting 40-ish% of the total votes, but regardless, 2 Splatfests and a big run isn't enough content to keep players invested in the game. 2 Splatfests and a big run take up a total of 6 days of the 90 days of chill season, and people are starting to understand that the lack of content after the season drop isn't enough to keep players invested. I mean, you can only play on Brinewater Springs for so long before you want to throw your Switch off the top building at Flounder Heights. See what I did there? The content drought issue is something that games like Halo Infinite have completely died due to. Don't get me wrong, I don't think Splatoon 3 will ever end up getting into the depressing state that Halo Infinite's in, but it serves as a bleak comparison to what can happen to live service games when they take the seasonal approach and don't have enough content. Live service games like Splatoon live and die by how they keep the world growing and changing, and Splatoon 3 doesn't have a natural growth pattern. We've got one big drop in the beginning, then 6 days of content that we've technically already played before, rationed very thinly over the next 90 days. That is a massive issue, not to mention how stupid it is that some of the content they're dropping in the seasonal launches is content that Splatoon 2 already had, like X-Rank and the inevitability of League Battle coming back in Fresh Season. So do we get how this is an issue that Nintendo needs to address? Then we can move on to how Nintendo can solve the issue. For one, there's never a reason for a Splatfest to skip a month, ever. Nintendo should treat big runs like a bonus event, not a salmon run version of Splatfests. If they did this, then we'd have months where we'd get both a Splatfest and a big run, which would be pretty awesome. 2 events in a month are always going to be better than 1, despite Big Run's current quality. Now, if Nintendo wants to stick to Big Run being a rare once-a-season event, they could keep that, but Nintendo should really address something that's been looking them dead in the eye since Splatoon 1, limited time modes. It's time for Nintendo to commit to it. LTMs don't need to be super crazy things, like imagine a normal capture the flag mode in Splatoon. Not like Rainmaker, but 2 flags that you can pick up and run back to your base with. Obviously, in this mode, flag runners can't super jump, thus needing to work with your teammates to run the flag. They could also do things like Team Deathmatch, where the point is just solely go for splats over like a 5-minute match. I swear this mode's been looking Nintendo in the eyes as long as Splatoon's existed, but they've just never wanted to touch it for any sound reason. They could go totally crazy and go for an 8-player free-for-all, but this would probably be the hardest mode to implement, but damn would it be crazy if they did. But I'd get that 8 different ink colors would be a little chaotic for Splatoon, still would go hard IMO. A round-based infection mode would also be super cool. One Inkling's infected and they have a slow swing rate Splatana, they hit someone who's not infected with it and they become infected too. Every non-infected Inkling could start out with a junior and find different canned weapons all over the map to better help protect themselves. It would be a round-based thing because Splatoon maps are so small to where the rounds wouldn't last that long. Maybe like a best 3 of 5 for each round and having that last like 2 minutes. Ooh, and the infected Inklings could be infected with like fuzzy or primordial ooze too. Or, you know, they could finally just commit to making a hide and seek mode into a real LTM mode. My point here is that LTMs don't need to be the most complicated things to be some of the best things to ever happen to Splatoon. The Splatoon formula can work so great with all of these things, and they're not exactly the hardest things to implement. Just like another 2-day event where we get to try some other goofy mode that wouldn't be in the game otherwise. Besides LTMs, Nintendo could release more weapons over the course of the season, not drip feed us the same amount of weapons we get when the season launches, but do a big drop and then maybe a new kit every other week. It's better than the nothing we've got right now. There are tons of things Nintendo could do to keep content coming in more consistently throughout the season, but those are just my ideas, and I'd love to hear yours. I read all my comments, and maybe if we get a bunch of good ideas, I can make a follow-up video on all the different ways Nintendo could keep Splatoon 3 seasons from getting stale. But But anyways, gamers, that's it from me. See ya.